my lover. When I'm with you, there is no other. You got me under. Please don't you leave. I'm on my hands and knees. Words can't express the way I feel. Motion for you. I'm so real. Girl, love me over and over again. Don't stop it. Please don't let it end. The things you do to me. It brings out ecstasy.
You know, it's I mean, growing up, you and Andre created an amazing legacy in Black culture and music with the creation of Uptown. And I did a poll this evening, to people to say who their favorite record label was between Uptown, Bad Boy, LaFace, and So Def, and almost half of the votes went to Uptown because of the caliber of artists you guys created. But before we get into that, part of the journey of this show is to understand how your journey, where you were brought up and raised, and how you got into music and entertainment, and just seeing your progression.
Right.
Yeah. So if we could just start off with where you're from, and we go from there.
Okay. Well, I'll do it simultaneously. Me and Andre grew up in the Bronx.
Okay, in New York.
So, yeah, Bronx, New York. Relatively good kids. Play. Touch football in the park, and do things that kids do. Ride on sleds, because we grew up in the northern part of the Bronx, not the south, so the northeast Bronx. And the northeast Bronx, just to let you know, that's where basically all like top drug dealers come from.
Oh,
basketball players come from. A lot of basketball players come from there. A lot of entertainers come from there.
Wow.
And so at a very young age, me and Andre was into music. Rap music was just emerging at that time. And this is when they had like artists like King Tim III from the Fatback Band, and Curtis Blow, and even before him, Jimmy Spicer, Schoolie D, and that kind of stuff. So we were like 9, 10 years old. Not when Curtis was doing it, but when Jimmy Spicer and these guys were doing it.
Okay.
And so we got into rap music, and Andre, I used to go to clubs because I was very big for my age at the time, and I had a full-grown beard at like 12 years old.
Oh.
And I looked like everybody's uncle that I hung out with. And so me and Andre, we would talk about music and fashion and, basketball, sports, because that's what we were surrounded by. We were surrounded by people that were very fashionable, and the most fashion-forward people were from Harlem.
Okay.
In our eyes. So, and Harlem is the place where you had the Rucker, you had the Rooftop, you had all these different drug dealers that would hire, basketball players to play on their team in the Rucker. So they would have teams that were like $1 million teams. Wow. And they would bet large amounts of money on these teams and to play in the Rucker. And they would, lure, great college players, even NBA players at that time.
Wow.
And, all these guys played in the Rucker before. Dr. J, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then you had street legends that played in it, like Pee Wee Kirkland, who was, could have went to the NBA if he wanted to, and then you had Joe Hammond, that was a drug addict, and he's the best player ever to play the game of basketball. Wow. And so you have all these people there. Now you put that there, now you have the entertainers, the music people, you know what I mean? Like coming through there, and it's a mix of drug dealers, college educated professors that wanted to be in the street and go to the hot clubs like, you know, the Red Parrot or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you got basketball players that wanted to be next to them. And, you know, in entertainment, there's always that element in the entertainment. And so you had this mix of people, and it was like a Renaissance era, to be honest. It was like a Renaissance era after the Renaissance era. And there was a kid there. We were like 16 years old at this point. Mm-hmm. And there was a kid there, and his name was Teddy Riley.
Wow.
And he's a prodigy in the church. And he had 30 managers that were drug dealers, criminal gangsters, or whatever. And it was impossible to get next to him just for him to make the, for him to even produce a record for you. Because he was living in a project at that time, and he had a studio set up there. And he was, you know, like I said, he was a prodigy in church, moving around. So as we coming out of high school, we going into high school, you know, we started giving parties, hip hop parties. And Andre always had the vision. He always had the musical vision of what the party should look like, what it should sound like, what the people should look like in it. And, you know, at first our thing was at 123 in the Bronx, you know, but I was already involved with hip hop music because the school I went to had DJ Breakout, Funky 4 Plus One More, Raheem from the Furious 5, and you had Christopher Williams there. You had all these people in this school that I went to. It was called Truman High School in the Northeast Bronx. And I used to tell Andre, you know, in that school, we had the prettiest women in the school on the planet. So Andre went to a high school called Charles Evan Hughes in Manhattan. And basically it was a bum-ass school. And Truman was like a brand new school in a brand new area in the Bronx called Co-op City. And what it had, you know, you had athletes moving up there, people that were becoming very successful in Harlem, whether it was selling drugs or going to school or whatever, they would start moving uptown because it was a better area because it had green grass, you know, pretty women. And it was a new school that had 25 swimming pools, Olympic-sized swimming pools. Wow. It had a football field, you know, the stadium-sized football field, a baseball field. It had 25 different gyms, and you know, we had the first year of the high school that was open, we won a national championship in high school. So, and also, you know, we had a lot of like I said, affluent people moving there, and they have soon moved out since then. But during that time, they were moving in, and it was basically a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. So Andre would come up to my high school from Charles F. Hughes because we had the pretty girls up there. So he would, and I would tell him, I said, yo, you know, the Northeast Bronx, this is the fly shit. This is Uptown. Where you live at is the South Bronx. That's some bum ass shit. And both agreed at sooner or later at one point, the whole Bronx is not Harlem. And it doesn't have the history that Harlem has. It doesn't have the information that Harlem has. It doesn't have, you know, the swag. The money doesn't come through here like that. And so, you know, we took our whole show on the road, and we wound up in Harlem. We wound up starting to set up during in Manhattan and Harlem, and he started becoming a MC. And he was part of a group called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know, and Mr. Hyde lived on 110th Street on the east side of Harlem. So he was already in because we needed some Harlem cats to get down with us to officiate.
Okay.
All right. So then Andre started and Alonzo started performing at Harlem World and going to Harlem World. And the people at Harlem World, they embraced him because Andre is like a genius from the beginning. Like, you know, he would attract people because we had like I said, it all was a plan. He was the only guy him and Alonzo and our crew that wore a suit and a tie at 13 years old, 15 years old. And it was designed to separate them from the crowd because they weren't the best MCs, but they were good. They were good, but they weren't the best MCs. And, you know, you had these other people that were like great MCs, like Melly Mel and these guys, and Africa Bambaata's crew and whatever crew it was. But on these guys, we decided and we designed a plan where it would separate these guys from everybody. So they became the suit and tie rappers and became the business rappers. That's what they wanted to present, that we are about business. And Andre was definitely about business, and he got right to it. And once he became, you know, Dr. Jekyll of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And what was, he quickly realized, okay, you know, I've taken this thing as far as I can take it. Now, let me get into the business side of it. I don't want to be an MC. I want to own a record company. Wow. And we were in college at that point. We were in Lehman College at that point. Now, Lehman College was a melting pot for talent as well. So I'm leaving Truman High School, which I had all these artists around me, and I was going to clubs. I seen Kool Herc from the beginning. I used to go to the Evilo. I used to go to the Executive Playhouse. I was at the beginning. I was there since there was no Puerto Ricans breakdancing. It was all black guys breakdancing, Latin music and disco. You know what I mean? And when we took it from the street of Kango hats and Adidas sneakers and breakdancing on boxes and took it into the club, that wasn't fly to us no more. We wanted to perform for the club. We wanted to be around the fly chicks. We wanted to be around the educated, you know, your professor went to the same club as you. You know what I mean? And then you also seen the top drug dealer there. You also seen the top basketball players there. You also seen the top football players, not really football players. They wasn't in the loop at that time. It was really basketball players, you know, and maybe some baseball players. And these guys, you know, they made up this community of music, this community of sports. And Andre was at the forefront of it all. So at that time, he's like 19 years old, getting ready to turn 20. We in college, you know. He's like, I got to make some extra money, and he starts working at WWRL. And this is where this radio station was an AM radio station instead of an FM radio station. This is where Frankie Crocker, Kim Webb, all these guys come out of. They come out of, you know, BK Kirkland. They went on to run WBLS, one of the biggest stations in the country at that time. And Frankie Crocker was one of the biggest, you know, radio announcers in the world at that time. You know what I mean? And the New York stations were amazing at that time. Frankie Crocker would come up with these catchphrases because he would be hanging around, you know, the Red Parrot at that night or Bentley's at that night amongst all these people. So he would get these little catchphrases, words. And, you know, by the way, I'm a wordsmith. So, you know, I made up all the words that people use today, right now. And so, you know, Andre had his talent. I had my talent. Alonzo has his talent. And Kurt Woodley was a part of our crew as well. And I'm going to explain who these people are down the line. Now, so we are going up to the Rucker Park, you know. Teddy's about 15 years old right now, and we're about 20, 21 years old. And we have already designed Uptown Records. And Uptown was based on Uptown, the Bronx, because I used to tell them, like, yo, when you come uptown, we got all the fly haircuts. We got all the fly girls. We got all the fly drug dealers. We got all the fly cars. We got all the fly music. And so I used to tell him that all the time. We would argue about it because he would say, when I come uptown, only thing I see is pretty girls and snow. And this reminds me of Nebraska. And I used to be like, no, you got to look deeper, baby. We got all the music. We got everything. And so at that time we did. And, you know, because I keep saying drug dealers, and it's not that I'm glorifying it. It's what I'm doing, giving you a roadway to how we thought, what we were thinking about, how we designed Uptown Records. And we had the drug dealers from up our way were in the music. They basically, a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them.
Yeah.
They were educated. They were super smart. They were fashion forward. And they were involved with all the new musicians or, you know, and the people in music. And we had to get in that game. And so we decided, like, we got to start calling somewhere else Uptown. And we started calling Harlem Uptown. And that's how you got Uptown Records. And that's how you got the cap. The cap represents education. It represents a drug dealer. You have to beep. That's what it represents. It represents the gold chain, the beeper, everything, the Nikes. That represents Uptown at the time. And that's what we thought it would be. That's what we thought it looked like. And that's what we sold. And so during that time, we're coming out of college, and there's this kid named Teddy Riley. We already knew about him. Yeah. And by Teddy had already produced a show and La Di Da. Right? He produced both of those records. They were smashes. And Dougie Fresh, who had been performing, and him and Andre had became very close in Alonzo in Harlem World, which was a club in Harlem that a lot of these guys, Curtis Blow, Dougie Fresh, Andre, all these guys were performing at and hanging at and being at. And, you know, we went to all the parties in Harlem, the Renaissance Ballroom and all that. And, you know, during that time, Hollywood was just coming up, DJ Hollywood and Busy B and Starsky had already been on the scene. And, you know, so all this was going on during that time. And all these people, all these talented people were going on. This is like almost the second wave of rap, because Melly Mel and those guys had already been out. Funky Floor Plus or More and those guys, they already got signed to, what is the records? What's the name of the record company? Their catalog is Chess Checkers and Cadet. And it's they had Sugar Hill on there, the Sugar Hill label. Yes, Sylvia Robinson and those guys, they had everything. And so here we come, you know, and like I said, we designed the whole Uptown, what it was going to look like, talk like, walk like, be like in a club, on the streets, and in the front office of MCA. And so the way we did that is like, you know, okay, how are we supposed to look? Okay, Wynton Marsalis is a good reference. Wynton Marsalis is a good reference for us. The way he dresses.
Yeah, the jazz.
The way he looks. Yeah. Let's do that. Like, we like the glasses he wears, you know. Alonzo, you wear that. Andre, you wear the suspenders, suit and tie. And this is before we were able to afford any type of real suit or suit and tie. We had very $69 suits and cheap shoes too to go with it, but it was a suit nonetheless. So that's what separated them from everybody else. And Andre's thinking and my thinking and Alonzo's thinking was, okay, so like how do we position this? All right, so we're in Harlem World where everybody got Kango hats on, Adidas sneakers, Puma sneakers, jerseys, and that kind of stuff. And here these guys come in with a suit and tie and Poindexter glasses. And so how do you get respect now? How do you get respect? Because when Andre stepped in the room, he was so articulate that he was like E.F. Hutton. And you could have been a serial killer. You was going to listen to him. And whatever he wanted to sell or have you buy, you definitely was going to buy it. And that was his whole approach to life. because he was so ahead of the curve, and not on his own, because of the people that was around him that helped him carve out the blueprint. The people like myself, the people like Kurt Woodley, the people like the staff at Uptown. You know, these people helped design his image and put him at the forefront of everything, because he was the one that was able to sell the idea, the dream, and the legacy better than anybody. And you have to let the best go first.
Yeah.
And so we started coming out of Lehman College. We start Uptown. I might be getting paid $10 a week. You know, Andre is getting checks to produce Heavy D and the Boys and the Uptown crew. So we get Teddy Riley, basically get in a situation where Teddy Riley sides with us over some of his managers and some of the people that, you know, really dangerous people at the time. And we took Teddy from them and was able to get some music out of him, some incredible music out of him. And the music was called New Jack Swing. And Andre coined the phrase New Jack Swing. Andre came up with the name New Jack Swing. Teddy came up with the music, but Andre created, told him what the sound would sound like, told him how it should look, how it should feel, where this feeling comes from, and Teddy was able to make it. Like you know.
But the question I had then was the getting to MCA. How did you actually manage to even get in the doors of MCA? Because
I'm getting to that.
Oh, you're gonna get that. Okay. Okay.
This is a journey right here. I'm taking you on.
Okay.
I'm taking you on a journey.
Yeah.
And so going back to Lehman College, like I said, we got people that are in the music business that was in Lehman College at that time.
Okay.
So we have Michael Haley, who worked at MCA, which is now Universal.
Yeah.
He was head of R&B promotion, Black promotions. All right. And we have another young lady, her name is Kathy Moore. There's about 100 of us going to Lehman at the time.
Wow.
Music, right. Just Kid and Play went to, Kid from Kid and Play went there. The creator MTV went there. You know, there's all kinds of people was just there. You know what I mean? We were in something called student government.
Okay.
So student government, we were had, Andre was the first guy out of my crew to be involved with student government and the head of the entertainment program. So the entertainment program had a budget. And in that budget, we bought Miles Davis there to our school, 2,500 seat theater. We bought Prince there.
Wow, Prince.
We bought The Temptations there. We bought James Brown there. We bought
James Brown.
Yeah, we bought the Cold Chillin' crew, Big Daddy Kane, Roxanne Shante, MC Shan, and we bought them there. We bought Eric B and Rakim there. We bought everybody there. And Andre was a rapper at the time, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So he got to perform with them. So he meets Gerald Busby one day performing at a local, club. And Gerald sees him, and Andre goes to him and starts selling him the vision of Uptown. And at that time, Gerald Busby was the head of MCA Black Music, the most powerful man in the game at that time. Because, you know, he had Luv, he had Jody Watley, he had New Edition, he had just everybody. They had everything. But their music was starting to become stale.
Okay.
It wasn't that it was good. They just didn't have nothing new. You know, he had Mint Condition. When Teddy came and Andre came with New Jack Swing, that was a new music. And so when he presented the Uptown crew to Gerald, we had Teddy Riley on that album. we had Marley Marl on that album, who was a new producer at that time. And you know, I don't know if you know who Marley Marl is. Marley Marl.
Oh yeah, big with it of LL. Yeah, no,
Right.
Marley.
LL, Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah.
You know, just, you know. So him and Teddy coming out of the streets were two of the biggest producers on the planet. I mean, in terms of hip hop producers.
Yeah.
And so Gerald listens to the album, says, you know, this is okay. You know, it's great. Gave him a little deal for the album, a compilation album.
Okay.
And he said, if something works off this album, I'll give you a production deal. And so what happened is we had the Uptown crew, but we put Teddy and Marley and Eddie F did Mr. Big Stuff.
Okay, that's from Heavy D. Okay.
Right. So that gave Heavy a top 10 record on the R&B charts. That top 10 record opened the door for Gerald to say, I'm not only going to give you a production deal, I'm going to give you a distribution deal, label deal.
Wow.
And Andre, like I said, all you have to do is give him an opportunity to present his music, present whatever it is he's selling, and you're going to buy it. And next thing you know, Andre has a distribution deal. And then after that, Teddy started producing Heavy's album. With the first album came out, we went double platinum.
Wow.
Okay. Most of the Uptown crew at that time, they didn't make it to, you know, the second single or even a lead single. So they got basically let go. And Heavy was the one that we focused on.